Thanks for tuning us in. Local Decision 2022 continues here on North Metro TV. And joining us now is Brad Delfs, who's on the Spring Lake Park City Council. He's the incumbent. You've been on board for 6 years, Brad, so you want to try to get more and continue to do what you've been doing. Yes. Tell us about your goals for Spring Lake Park.
Well, I've been on the council 6 years, and in that time, there's been a lot of changes for the positive, and I'd like to continue forging ahead as a member of the Spring Lake Park City Council. We have challenges, as all city council and elected officials do, but as elected official, I would like to continue to serve and make Spring Lake Park a safe and enjoyable place for our citizens to live.
What are some of the specific changes you've seen?
Well, for example, we've done a lot of work in the infrastructure area. We've relined all of our sewers, or we'll finish relining all of our sewers in 2023. We've resurfaced our streets. We've kept our streets up to date. We've dredged our drainage ponds to help alleviate some of the flooding issues we have. Of course, we've had 2 pretty much drought years since we've done that, but hopefully if anything ever happens again, it'll serve well. Of course, the big thing that's very noticeable to people is we've got a Hy-Vee store.
Yes.
That was a biggie for us to bring in. Those are some of the changes, and of course, all the changes associated with what's happened in the 2.5 years since March of 2020 with the pandemic, civil unrest. It's a different world today than it was then. So we've had to kind of roll with those changes as well.
Yeah, and getting Hy-Vee, that's a splash. That puts Spring Lake Park even more on the map, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. We didn't have our own grocery store, per se, and the location of it right along the northbound Highway 65 is a huge plus for us. Plus, it was able to make use of land that was, that we had speculations where people wanted to use for it, but this was a great use for the city and for the community.
All right, so Minnesota State 65, it is a hot button topic, no matter who you're talking to in, Ham Lake, down to Blaine, Spring Lake Park. Obviously, things will get better in your city once the improvements are made, right?
Well, that's the idea, and we have members of our city council that are on the MnDOT Highway 65 improvement project, and I'm sure if you've talked to other candidates all the way up to our state legislatures as well, I mean it's a big deal improving that corridor to make traffic flow faster, smoother, safer for everybody that has to commute to the northern suburbs.
Yeah, and in some ways, Spring Lake Park is a gateway city. If you go south, you're very close to Minneapolis,
right,
and all that is down that way. Then you go north, you're Blaine and beyond. And yet you want to make Spring Lake Park, I'm guessing, not just a drive-through city, but a place where people are going to stop, shop, and do other things.
Right, exactly. And we are sort of wedged in between Blaine and Fridley, 2 much larger communities, much larger population communities. Our school district spans all 3 communities, Fridley, Spring Lake Park, and parts of Blaine, or parts of Fridley, parts of Blaine. So we have that from a school district standpoint, but yes, we wanted to make it, we want people to stop. We want people to stop and shop. We want people to stop and eat. We want, all for the better.
You mentioned challenges. What are some of those?
Biggest challenges, when I talk to people in the city, the first thing they bring up is, of course, taxes, right? We're living in an area right now of great inflation, so money's really tight for a lot of people, and when they get their tax bill, they're wanting, that too is going up. I will say this, that's one of our biggest challenges because we're only 2.2 square miles, and we have to support between 6,500 and 7,000 people, and so the challenge there is to keep our taxes low and keep our communities safe and a good place to live. I will say this, our administration and our elected officials strive really hard to keep our tax levies reasonable and use that money appropriately for the things that needs to be done. There's not a lot of fat in our budget in Spring Lake Park. So that's one of the challenges. Another challenge is continued, as I've mentioned before, keeping our community safe and livable. So, the challenges with, police, fire, things like that, code enforcement, all those things, all part of the plan.
So when you're on the campaign trail and knocking on those doors and shaking hands, what are people specifically telling you?
It's kind of interesting because it's almost the other way around. A lot of people are saying, what are the issues? What should we be worried about, or what should we be looking at? It's like, no, that's, that's my question to you folks, is what are your issues? I mean, I've had people, ask me about, again, taxes is a biggie.
Yeah.
And I've had people ask about what new businesses may be coming in. I've had people mention code enforcement. Some people don't really are concerned about certain codes and things that they feel aren't being enforced and regulated. And so there's those kind of things. But I mean, by and large, it's sort of amazing. We have a lot of second and third generation families in Spring Lake Park. In other words, people that were born and raised there and then stayed. Two of our city council members were born and raised in Spring Lake Park and lived there their entire lives. Another one was born in Spring Lake Park, left for a while and came back. I've only lived there for 25 plus years.
Oh, you're a newbie.
I'm kind of a newbie. Well, there's one of the council members that left, but we're all from the area. Well, I'm not originally, but I mean, we've all lived there a fair amount of time. So we're all townies, if you will. We all want to be there and we all want to help the city.
So you have a lot of people with strong roots in Spring Lake Park.
Yep.
Yet I know you have some diversity. The demographics have changed
Yes.
somewhat. So how do you make it where everyone feels welcome?
That's an excellent question, and that's one of our biggest challenges, right? So one of the things we do there is like with our park and rec programs, for example. We make programs that aren't just for certain segments. We want to make programs for all segments of the population, whether it's sports, whether it's activities, whether it's senior activities. We want to try to make it welcoming, like you say, welcoming for people of all backgrounds, of all parts of the community. And I think our park and rec department's done a good job of that. I think our police department does a good job of that. They try to be, they do a lot of outreach. One of the things I mentioned in my bio was coffee with a cop. Hy-Vee does it. We've done it like 2 or 3 times now, where people can come to Hy-Vee, meet the police department. We have open houses at the fire department. People are invited to come there, not just people that have lived there for generations, but everybody should come there and find out what we're about. That's what we try to do.
Do you find that people are receptive to that? And when there's that give and take, do you feel like you walk out of Hy-Vee and everybody has a better understanding of each other?
I think so. I mean, the people I've talked to do. What's interesting is that when we've had those events at Hy-Vee, you'll get people from the community that are shopping, right? And they'll see us kind of in the entryway to the store, having coffee, having donuts, policemen. A Blaine police officer with the canine unit came, so we had a dog. That'll always draw people. And they're kind of like, what's going on here, And so we stress that, well, this is our police department. This is our chief of police. This is officer, whoever. And, what's going on? What do you want to talk about? Meet them, enjoy them. So very receptive.
Hy-Vee, I mean, the brand is certainly regionally known. Can that be a trampoline to getting other businesses to come to Spring Lake Park? Hey, if it's good enough for Hy-Vee, maybe we should think about the city?
That's what we're hoping. I mean, we have certain areas that's exactly what we're hoping that will happen. We don't have a lot of underdeveloped area, right? I mean, we're pretty much closed off. We're surrounded, like you mentioned, by other communities, so we don't have a lot of opportunity. But what we do try to do is like, oh, well, here's, any open space. Yeah, we want to be very inviting. And we do have, along the way, we do get interest like that. And I think Hy-Vee will be a big magnet for that.
So you have the open space, you're courting other businesses, but I'm guessing you also want to preserve some of the green spaces and the parks and the trails, because that's paramount to any city.
2.2 square miles, and we have some fabulous parks in Spring Lake Park. And we also don't have a lot of underdeveloped areas, and also, as you can understand, sometimes there's businesses, we want to invite the right businesses. We don't want just anybody, well, we'll take you. We want to invite the right business that's the right fit for the community.
You've been an IT director.
Yes.
Does that help you on the council?
Yes. Well, I've been in IT and computers my entire career, right? And so there are certain issues that come up with, let's just say, IT solutions that are needed at the city or needed in the police department. That's kind of my thing, right? I know what's going on, and so they do sort of lean on me for some of that stuff. Yes, it absolutely has. Being a leader, I've been a leader in a leadership role for probably the last 20 years. And that's helped too. That helps, believe it or not, being a leader helps you listen. It really does. And that's something that's very important in the city council.
The internet, the information superhighway, it's been around, 2-3 decades now, but some people still don't have access to it. Do you think that should be a basic right of every citizen to be able to get on the internet?
I think it's getting there. I think it is, because we saw what happened during the pandemic and in-home learning for schools and kids. And a lot of kids these days, a lot of school districts have their own iPad. Well, that's great, but if you're not connected to the school, that's not going to help you. So I think that's happened a lot more outstate. But bottom line is, it's still in town here too. It's still an issue. Yes, I do. I think that. But on the other hand, we also have to serve, probably some of our senior population. I hate to use them as an example, but a lot of them aren't as internet savvy,
Yeah.
or as smartphone savvy. So, and they also appreciate face-to-face. So we have to kind of keep that in mind.
It's a balancing act, isn't
It's
it?
a balancing act.
And you do, fundraising and stuff for the Spring Lake Park schools. So I'm sure that you know that if there are certain kids in school that don't have access to, the Chromebook or
Right.
the internet, they can get lapped quickly, can't they?
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. And Spring Lake Park, for example, they give iPads, I think, from kindergarten on up for use for students. But they still have to have access. They still have to learn how to use it. And yeah, but kids that don't have that access, yeah, they are. And they're out there.
What do you like about Spring Lake Park? I mean, you've obviously, dropped anchor there. What do you like about it?
I like the fact that it has sort of a small town feeling in a lot of ways. Because there are second and third generation families, a lot of people know a lot of people. You know everybody for the most part, or you know a lot of people. And if you've lived there a long time, you do. And you kind of understand. That's what I like about it. I like that feeling of a small town. And I also, frankly, like the location. It's a great location. You're relatively close to Minneapolis, relatively close to St. Paul. So you've got access to the big cities if you need them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm guessing a recruiting pitch would be, you want to go to a Twins game, you're 15 minutes down the road, but you come back home and you almost feel like you're in the exurbs, way out.
Yep.
If you're reelected, do you have any priorities, Brad?
My priorities, again, as I've stated over and over again, would be managing our finances and taxes, keeping our community safe, and making sure that we have the proper infrastructure to support our community. That's my top three, I guess.
Do you run into residents who are concerned about public safety?
I run into residents that, yes, that are concerned about public safety, but one of the things that we've stressed to residents, and this goes for either our police or code enforcement, whichever, is like, you have to call. Some people well, we don't want to bother them. It's like, no, we're very, very fortunate in a community the size of Spring Lake Park to have our own police force, our fully staffed police force. That's what they're there for. They're there to help everybody. And people need to engage them. And that's okay. That's fine. That's their job. They will tell you the same thing. Call us. We'll be there. That's what we're there for.
Was there much of a learning curve when you first got elected to the city council?
Yes. In that I needed to understand a lot of the processes. A former city council person gave me really good advice when he said, listen and learn. And I did. And I've had people tell me that maybe I don't speak up enough at council meetings, or especially early on, but I was listening and learning. I knew all the people on the council. I've known them for years because I served 10 years on the Park and Rec Commission. And so I knew them, but I didn't know all of the processes involved, and I've come up to speed on all that now.
At what point did you realize one voice is not going to be the tipping point, that you have to collaborate and get on board? You may not always get your way, but you have to come together.
Right, and I think that was on and we have very few controversial issues and arguments about ordinances, but when you have to go through that process of negotiating, compromising, you learn that, yeah, okay, you have to sort that out with everybody. You can't just forge through with your own ideas. Maybe you got to listen, and you like you say, you have to compromise. You have to negotiate, and And I think that's when I all of a sudden like, yeah, okay, so this isn't just a rubber stamp here. We have to work this out.
Brad, good to talk to you. Thanks for stopping by, and good luck out there on the campaign trail.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, November 8th is coming up. This is Local Decision 2022. That's Brad Delfs, Spring Lake Park City Council. He's an incumbent, and he's running again here in 2022.